Hello everyone, it's Jack from VFXHUT. So today I'm going to teach you how to make a cave scene and learn quite a lot about Octane in the process and Cinema 4D. So without further ado, let's get started. So I'm going to pick the pen tool and I'm going to start drawing a rough cave shape entrance. Something like that, and then we'll jump into the extrude and extrude that out. So you got something like that, so that's kind of like a cool entrance to a cave. We will just go to this view so we can see our subdivisions. So these are like quick dirty tricks to create good stuff. So so you want it to look like it's coming down a bit maybe, and then once we're happy with that we can just hit this button, make it editable, and then you can go in and sculpt this manually, or a lazy way would be to just go to the displacer and use one of the surfaces, like just use noise, so we're creating variation and it doesn't look as linear now. So we can just go in and adjust that and make it probably a little bit bigger. And we need to make it a bit stronger, so let's just crank up the height values. So once you've got that kind of cool looking shape, that looks pretty cool, let's throw our camera in there, and we'll be on quite a wide lens, so we're not super wide, so we'll go 24mm. Let's punch in. So we've got our cave shape looking good already. The next thing is the ground, and we will just go so the next thing is the ground. We'll go for a plane. We'll just come out to this view for a bit. We will add a few more polygons for this one, not too much because we're using a graphics card render engine. So we've got 50, and a good thing to do at this point as well is drop in your figure to see the scale of the cave and if it's kind of the vibe you're going for. So this is kind of a low small cave, which we don't want. We kind of want it to be a bit bigger than that, so we can just make it a little bit taller, a bit wider. And we need to change the height values so that they correspond nicely, and the noise maybe. It's more the size we're going for, and again we can come out a little bit. So with the ground we can do pretty much the same, so we can just control and drag down, throw this onto the plane, and we will, for this we'll go to layer, keep this noise just quite subtle, and then we'll add another shader. We will add a gradient, So we've got a natural curve. So we've got a natural curve in the middle. Spread this out a little bit so it's a bit less severe. And then we can add a little bit of turbulence as well, so it looks a bit more natural. So we've got a nice composition there, and we're ready to start adding some textures and details and lighting. So I'm going to create a universal material. We'll use one of our rock textures, so we'll go for one of our Isle of Man ones. So just click in the node editor, and then we'll drag our textures in because it's faster. Or if you're using Quixel, you can just drop in using Quixel Bridge, which is amazing. You can delete that. Then we can just drag our texture, drag it into albedo. Specular into specular. Normal into normal. Ignore the metallic, we can just do that ourselves. Might want to change it in a bit. Then we go to displacement, add displacement. Throw in the displacement texture. So we're using Isle of Man Rock 1 for this. And we'll make it 4K. We'll change the filter type to Gaussian, keep it at 1, and see what that looks like for now. And then we'll just drag it onto the cave and render to see what it looks like. Okay, that already looks pretty cool. So we'll just change the UV tiling. Remember, it kind of doesn't matter about this, but so much think about more there if we're going to let the lighting come through there. Just more what that looks like there. So you'll start to notice some of these creases causing issues here as well. So to sort that out, we can use the iron. Just put that there. So the iron's a weird tool, so you need to just select your faces first. Click on your iron, and then you can start ironing. Remember, these are lazy tricks. If you got a proper UV'd model, then you wouldn't have to worry about this, but these are quick tricks to create cool stuff. And sometimes you might be able to get away with this if you've got to produce a lot of scenes, especially on a low budget. So we've got something that's looking quite nice. Because it's a rock as well, we're going to knock that specularity down a bit. And because the map hasn't actually got anything special on it, we can just delete it and have full control over that ourselves. So just, for now, just knock it down. And then the next part, I guess, is creating a light. So we will create a daylight. And we will spin it around until we get some cool light coming through the cave. Yeah, it's cool. So because this is a path tracing render, when we go for a final render, we need to block off the light here. So to do that, I'm just going to use, it can be a plane. And just crop that off so we're getting no light. And just for render speed, we want to make a diffuse material and make it black. So that when we switch to path tracing, it looks like light's just coming through. And if we hadn't have done that step, it would look bright and weird. So now we've got the lighting. Kind of want to improve that texture a little bit, so let's just change our render settings just a bit so that yep, so let's just improve that texture a little bit more. So we've got that, and now we need a ground. So we've just added some nice new grounds actually, so we'll use one of those. So again, we'll create a universal material, and we'll be using forest ground. So just need the base colour, drop that in, height, the normal. Sometimes you can get rid of the normal maps as well because they look better without them, and the roughness. Just in case, we'll use get the ambient occlusion in as well, and we will do a multiply. Let's leave that open for now. That metallic needs to come down because it's a ground. And then just drop it on the ground. So it looks pretty gross. So we need to bring that specularity all the way down. Not massively, because it kind of probably would be wet and being under a cave. And then let's just crank up the value. And for a scale check, you do need to keep doing this, so we'll just come out and just check that the ground looks like it's quite good. So it kind of does work being that big because you can't really see the details, but because it's kind of a ground texture, let's say it's forest, we need to reduce that quite down significantly. There we go. Now would be a good time to probably make any final adjustments to the cave shape. And to introduce some nice looking light. Kind of want to get these lines a bit softer, so we'll just increase the sun size. Maybe even swing it around so it lets more light through. We will multiply that and see if that makes any difference that we like, so we'll store render buffer and throw on the ambient occlusion through the multiply. Yeah, I like what that's doing. So we'll reduce the specularity a little bit again. We'll reduce the specularity on this too, on the cave. And then we could start to introduce a few pebbles as well. So we'll create another universal material, one of our original textures. So we'll go for, it's just called pebble floor. So albedo, roughness. Let's knock that specularity down already, and the metallic off. and we will add a height. So displacement, plonk it in there. It is a 4K texture, but let's just make it 2K because it's going to get big. And what we'll do is we'll duplicate the floor, and this time throw the pebbles on. So you can see that it's starting to populate with some big bricks, which you might want, you might not. So we're just going to go a bit smaller because I do kind of like the bigger pebbles. So we'll go for about 20 by 20. Not quite that small. So you can see them start to populate in the scene, creating a bit more detail. And we can use just use the displace and change the height to increase the amount. So if we wanted loads, we could do that. But we don't. We want a few. So they're kind of a weird colour as well, and if you're going for a certain look, you might want the pebbles to blend in a bit, so you can just grab a colour correction node, drop it in between the albedo, and then tweak the colours. So it looks a little better. I feel like we need more displacement on that texture, so on the cave. Yeah, that looks better. So what I like to do now is I can notice stuff that's not looking nice on the floor. So kind of want to just fix that using the camera imager and pulling the highlights up. So anything that looks a bit nasty, you can get rid of it. Because we're in a cave as well, creating a little bit of vignetting on the camera won't hurt. And just to help us temporarily, let's pull that down to about 0.7, and that looks pretty cool. I really do want to block off more of that light. So the camera is inside now, so that's okay. So we can probably just whack that full 90 degrees and really block that light off. It's much better. If you've got World Creator, or you have got some maps for the background, then you could create some mountains, or you could just post that in afterwards. We're actually going to be creating some landscapes as well in the library soon. But for now, let's just use a cheat method just to give us something in the distance. So we'll just use the default Cinema 4D landscape, blow it up a little bit. Kind of like that over that side more, and give us some more. Just spin it round for a bit of variation. So again, nothing amazing, and we can use the same Isle of Man texture, although because it's in the background you could probably get away with no displacement. So let's do that so it's faster at calculating. So we'll just duplicate the material and turn the displacement off. And then throw that on there, and then throw that on there. Let's put more on this one. Thing is, with textures with faraway objects like this, you kind of can't really show that repeating pattern, otherwise it really throws the image. So I've got something that looks like that. It's pretty nice. Really want some more of that light coming into the cave and creating that bounce feel, so create some more power on that light. Just make something look pretty cinematic. I kind of want that, but the other side. And then as a two finishing touches, just to, again, this is not like a final scene, but it's just giving you ideas and showing you little workflow tricks. We'll create some water, actually, which we can just duplicate the same plane, and then we'll just use a specular material, probably get rid of the displacer for the water, pull this down a little bit more so we get some of the cave in. In the node editor we can either use some of the default water textures from the live DB, which are pretty cool, or if you want to know kind of how to do them roughly, you can use either some kind of turbulence, noise, or anything like that for the bump. We run it really, really low because it's quite still. No one's been to this cave for some time. But enough to make it look like water, so that's cool. So we've just gone for turbulence and just changed the power down a bit. So that looks pretty nice. And because we haven't got a nice mountain in the background, and we haven't stacked multiple textures, and we haven't really designed that cave super well, we need a kind of way of hiding or cheating this. So what we'll do is we'll add a fog, and because we've got a daylight already, we can just go to the daylight tag, add a medium, add fog, and we'll make the density about 0.1. Volume, step length, can keep changing these. I've made the colours also resemble dust more, dusty colours. Let me change that a bit. So I quite like the 0.1. And then because we've added the fog, we can let more light in, maybe like double the amount. And because the fog diffuses the light anyway as well, we can sharpen that sun again. So anyway, I hope you found this tutorial kind of fun and a bit different. We're all about giving little quick tips. Obviously this cave doesn't look amazing, but if you spend more time on it and you spend about an hour, 2 hours, maybe 3-4 hours, you'll get something that looks stunning and pretty realistic. But hope you found this useful, and I will catch you on the next one.